Welcome to the Magellan-class Scanning and Navigation Training Module. My name is Ava, and the UN Space Fleet's AI voice assistant. In this module, we will review the correct procedure for identifying targets of interest, and then navigating the ship to the desired location. To begin, proceed to the ship's bridge. I have placed a waypoint on your HUD to help you find your way. Welcome to the bridge. This is the ship's nerve center, where you have command and control over any ship system. Right now, we're interested in the science station, so make your way over to that console and take a seat. This bridge station is responsible for scanning space around the ship and then highlighting any targets of scientific interest for the command staff. You'll notice that the sensor's UI has 4 distinct modes, with each mode corresponding to one of the ship's physical sensor arrays. Let's begin by taking a look at the galactic position mode, which ties into the X-ray pulsar-based navigation and timing array, or XNAV for short. This array tracks the location and timing of known pulsars to accurately derive the ship's position relative to the galactic core. We can also reference that same catalogue of known stellar objects to obtain a high-level overview of each galactic sector. The default sector target always aligns with our ship's current local sector. However, by using the controls below, we can actually target any sector of space, anywhere in the galaxy, or even beyond. Go ahead and press the Target Select button to switch from our local sector to a manually targeted one. You'll notice that the sector information has now updated to reflect the change of sector target. While this is only a high-level overview of a given sector, the data can still be useful when deciding where to explore next. And then finally, we have some simple display controls for refining your view of the galactic map. Have a go at targeting a few different sectors yourself, and then press the long-range button when you're ready to continue. The long-range mode employs the ship's space-time curvature mass inferencer, or SCMI array for short. As the name suggests, the SCMI array infers the location and mass of celestial objects by detecting localized changes in the curvature of spacetime. While operating in passive mode, the array detects the largest sources of space-time curvature within a 50 light-year radius of the target location. Typically, these will be star systems, but the array is also capable of detecting much smaller objects within a few light-years, such as rogue planets. And as with the XNAV array, the default target location is the ship's current galactic coordinates. This will update automatically and refresh the target list as you travel across the galaxy, but you can toggle that behavior on and off using the Auto Refresh button. And again, we can also manually target any sector of space in an effort to find distant targets of interest. Just be aware that the SCNI array has a maximum active range of 2,000 light-years, beyond which it can only resolve the most massive of objects. And on the subject of active scans, let's take a more detailed look at a nearby star system. Go ahead and select the Alpha Centauri system, our closest stellar neighbor. A basic overview of that system is generated on the right-hand side, and the displayed information will expand over time as more detailed scans are performed. Now go ahead and click the Align to Target button to focus the SCMI array on this specific location in space. We are now presented with a more detailed view of the targeted location. However, you'll notice that it's only showing the passively acquired data. Let's fill in the blanks by performing a long-range survey. The
Initiating
SCMI array
long-range
is now
survey.
actively scaling the target location for point-like increases in the curvature of spacetime. By employing Einstein's field equations, the system can derive the amount of mass required to cause the observed increase in curvature. Then, once the mass is known, we can determine roughly what class of object we are observing, be it a rocky planet or a gas giant. Okay,
Long-range
there we
survey
go.
complete.
We now have a much more accurate picture of this star system. Go ahead and select any of the objects in the target list. You'll find that we now have more detailed information available to us on the right-hand UI panel. You will also notice that the data is split into distinct knowledge levels, and with our long-range survey, we have unlocked knowledge level 1. This is also indicated on each target entry by way of a single green pip. The goal here is to find rocky worlds within a star's habitable zone, which is our primary target of scientific interest. We can then navigate the ship to that location in order to perform more detailed scans, ultimately increasing our knowledge level for any given object. Typically, we'd perform numerous surveys on many different star systems before plotting a course, but for now, let's pick a target in this system. Go ahead and select any planet that appeals to you from the list, and then select the Send to Helm button. This makes the planet's coordinates available to the Helm station, so let's head over and take a look at that console now. We'll begin by taking a quick look at the various screens available to the helm. The left-hand display is dedicated to navigation and shows both the ship's current galactic position along with its target estimation coordinates. The central display deals with the flight controls themselves, including the FTL system, sublight engines, and the reaction control thrusters. The right-hand screen features the autopilot controls, toggles for the 3D target indicators, and the ship's navigation lights. Okay, let's retrieve the target information from the sensors by pressing the Use Sensor Target button on the navigation panel. Your target's coordinate should now be displayed in this box, which represents your current nav target. The galactic coordinates represent the target's position in the galaxy to the nearest whole light year. The coordinates are relative to the center of our galaxy, the supermassive black hole known as Sagittarius A star. The local coordinates represent the target's position within a star system. The coordinates are relative to the system's center of gravity, which is usually a star or the barycenter in multi-star systems. While it is possible to fly the ship manually to any location in the galaxy, let's engage the autopilot for now so that I can take care of that for you. Go ahead and press the highlighting button on the right-hand screen. The ship will now automatically turn to face the current nav target, but you will need to manually engage the FTL system in order for us to get underway. You may now engage the FTL system when you are ready. While the autopunt is engaged, I will manage the ship's speed and final approach to the tiny coordinates, so just sit back and enjoy the ride. The FTL system works by compressing space ahead of the ship and then expanding it behind, creating a bubble of warped space with the ship occupying a region of flat space-time at its center. The FTO field massively amplifies the ship's current velocity by a factor of the field strength along the direction of the field's forward vector. This means the FTL field does not physically move the ship, it instead relies on the thrust provided by the ship's sublight engines. The maximum speed of the ship is therefore a combination of the FTL field strength and the thrust output of the sublight engines. For the Magellan class, this is approximately 300 light-years per hour. Even so, the Milky Way is a vast and mysterious place, and even at our top speed it will still take over 2 full weeks to fly from one side of the galaxy to the other. It looks like we're not far from our destination now, so enjoy the view while I handle the final approach. Okay, here we are. You are now looking at an entirely new world, bathed in the light of another star. At this distance, our home is now just another point of light in the vast darkness of space. Does life exist here? What new things can we discover on this world? These are the questions that this ship was designed to answer. Let's head back to the sensor station, and we'll see if we can answer some of those questions now. With our ship having arrived at our target star system, we can now employ the medium-range sensors to broaden our general knowledge of this location. Go ahead and press that button now. The medium-range sensors employ multiple modules that are combined into a single array, known as the Multi-Band Interferometric Spectrometer, or MBIS for short. This array has the resolution to perform detailed scans of any object larger than a few dozen kilometers, with its range covering an entire star system. Operationally, we perform a medium-range survey as a matter of course when entering any new star system. This elevates us to knowledge level 2 for all objects in range. Let's do that now. Go ahead and initiate the survey. Just as with the long-range survey, the MBIS array works outward from the central star, targeting each detective object in turn. It uses a combination of interferometry and spectroscopy to determine the precise nature and class of all system objects, including their atmospheric composition. Okay, let's wait for the survey to complete. There we go. You'll notice that we are now showing 2 green pips on each of the objects in this system. And on the right-hand side, you'll find that we have now generated the knowledge level 2 data. At this point, we've performed enough analysis to determine the true nature of each planet, and more importantly, whether or not we've discovered an Earth analog. But what about life, or signs of civilization, past or present? For that, we're going to need a short-range scan. Go ahead and switch to the short-range mode. The short-range sensors employ the Synthetic Aperture Terahertz Imaging Radar, or the SATIR array for short. This device fields a high-resolution loxanized tomographic image of its target, and then performs detailed spectral analysis on each individual data point. With this technology, we can determine the presence of life, identify artificial structures, and even conduct metallurgical analysis. Let's perform a scan of this planet now and see what details we can reveal. Begin, and now initiate the short-range scan. Great, you'll notice that we have now generated knowledge level 3 data for this planet, which covers all of its surface details. Any given star system is considered to be fully explored once all of its planets are scanned to knowledge level 3. Okay, let's take a look at those surface details. Go ahead and press the Surface Map button. From here, we can enable or disable various data overlays depending on our current area of scientific interest. The first overlay is fairly self-explanatory. It simply displays the planet's cloud layers. The next overlay shows the planet's lit and unlit regions. This button highlights any tech signatures on the planet's surface, be that current or historical technology. And then we have life signatures, which can be anything from simple bacteria to complex life forms. You are now armed with the knowledge and skill required to head out into the unknown depths of our galaxy, to conduct scientific research and discover its mysteries. This ship and her crew are tasked with exploring distant worlds, seeking out new life in all of its diversity, and making peaceful first contact with any intelligent species that we might encounter along the way. This concludes the Scanning and Navigation training module. You are free to continue exploring if you wish, but please be aware that your progress will not be saved. Thank you, and goodbye.
Welcome to the Magellan-class Cold Start training module. My name is Ava. I'm the UN Space Fleet's AI voice assistant. In this module, we will review the correct procedure for starting up the ship's fusion reactor and then supplying power to the vessel. The ship is currently in a cold and dark state, so for your safety, I have taken the liberty of turning on your torch for you. To begin, follow the waypoints on your HUD to the lower floor of the reactor room. As you can see, the reactor is offline, and none of the ship's systems are powered. Our first task is to provide power to the engineering decks, so let's make our way to the start capacitor's room. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to the startup distributor. As its name suggests, the startup distributor routes energy from the start capacitors to the engineering decks, and also provides the reactor with the power it needs to create the initial fusion reaction. You'll notice the device is already powered because the start capacitors are fully charged. Let's go ahead and get some lights on by connecting all of the breakers. Start with the G-deck breakers, as indicated. And now the F-deck breakers. And finally, the reactor supply itself. Excellent, now we can see what we're doing. You can go ahead and turn off your torch by pressing T. The reactor controls should now be online, so let's walk back to the reactor room and take a look. This console displays the reactor's vital information and provides you with full control over the reactor and its subsystems. On the left-hand side, we have the coolant section, which shows the liquid helium coolant flow and the condition of the magnetic field coils. On the right-hand side, we have the electrical section, which shows the reactor's main electrical bus, along with its input and output feeds. In the center, we have the reactor's main display, where we can control the fusion reaction itself. As you can see from all of these alarms, it would be impossible to initiate a stable fusion reaction under the current conditions, so let's fix that. The first thing we need to do is supply power to the reactor's internal bus, so go ahead and switch the reactor to startup mode by pressing the indicated button. Great! Now that the reactor has power, we can activate the vacuum pump to start purging the confinement chamber. The chamber pressure should now be dropping. To sustain a fusion reaction, we need an internal pressure of less than 10 nanopascals. While we wait for the confinement chamber to reach its target pressure, let's take care of the reactor's fuel and coolant supplies. Exit the reactor room via the door behind you, and follow the waypoints on your HUD to the cryogenic storage room. These storage tanks hold all of the cryogenic fluids that are used to both fuel and cool the reactor. All 4 tanks are currently empty, so our first task is to begin the filling process. Let's start with the helium coolant. Head behind the storage tanks to access the helium cryo cooler. The cryo coolers use a process called magnetic refrigeration to convert gas into a cryogenic fluid, before pumping it into the connected storage tank. Start up the helium cryo cooler now by using the indicated control on its user interface. Excellent. Now if you turn around, you'll find the helium refill valve located on the back wall. These valves control the flow of gases harvested by the ship's gas collection hardware, which is located on the underside of the forward hull. Go ahead and open the helium supply valve now to begin supplying the cryo cooler with helium gas. If you turn around again and inspect the display screen connected to the helium tank, you should be able to confirm that the tank is now filling with fluid. We now need to perform the same sequence of events for the other 3 tanks. Head over to the helium-3 cryocooler next. Helium-3 is the first of 2 fuels used in the fusion reaction. As before, power up the device using its user interface. And now open the helium-3 refill valve behind you to start filling its associated tank. Next, we need to start filling the 2 deuterium tanks, so let's head over to the other side of the room. Deuterium, also known as heavy hydrogen, is the second of the 2 fusion fuels. We store double the amount of deuterium compared to helium-3 because deuterium also fuels the reactor's neutral beam injectors. As before, turn on the first deuterium cryocooler. And now the first deuterium refill valve behind you. Next, turn on the second deuterium cryocooler. And now the second deuterium refill valve. Okay, perfect. All 4 storage tanks should now be filling with cryogenic fluids. For our next task, we now need to engage the cryopumps in order to start supplying the reactor with everything it needs. Make your way around to the other side of the tanks and locate the deuterium tank outflow valve. Open the deuterium outflow valve to begin supplying fluid to its connected cryopump. Next, power on the pump itself using the button indicated on its user interface. Excellent. That's half of the fuel mix taken care of. Now head over to the helium-3 tank outflow valve so we can complete the fuel supply. As before, begin by opening the helium-3 outflow valve. And now engage the helium-3 cryopump. Perfect. All we have to do now is take care of the coolant flow. Now open the helium outflow valve. And finally, power on the helium cryopump. There we go. The reactor is now being supplied with all the fuel and coolant it needs. Follow the waypoints back to the reactor room, where we have just a few more valves to open. To complete the coolant loop, open the helium inflow valve to start flowing coolant through the magnetic field coils. Now make your way around to the opposite side of the reactor. First, open the deuterium inflow valve. And now open the helium-3 inflow valve. Okay, great. Let's head over to... As you can see, we now have coolant flowing into the reactor. This has begun the process of cooling down the magnetic field coils, which must reach temperatures below 20 Kelvin in order to become superconductive. Once the coils have reached their target temperature, you will be able to engage the magnetic field. Okay, the temperatures look good. You can now power up the field coils. With a solid vacuum established, the field coils powered up, and fuel flowing into the reactor, you are now free to initiate the fusion reaction. Congratulations! You have now successfully started the fusion reactor. For safety, the reactor automatically starts up at only 10% of its rated power. This means high-voltage systems, such as the FTL drive, will be underpowered until you increase the reactor output. Let's resolve that now. Increase the power level to 100% using the indicated controls. You'll notice that you can increase the power beyond 100%, but doing so for an extended period will overheat the reactor, causing damage and forcing an uncontrolled shutdown. Okay. We now need to provide power to the rest of the ship. With the reactor now powering itself, you can go ahead and switch the internal bus mode from startup to supply. Perfect. If we now head around to the opposite side of the reactor output distributor should now be powered up. This device distributes the reactor's output to the ship's high-voltage systems, which are in fact the only systems powered directly by the reactor. The rest of the ship is powered by 48 individual battery arrays, which we now need to begin charging using the reactor's output. Go ahead and connect all 5 of the output breakers here. Excellent. If you turn to your left, you'll see the 5 high-voltage distributors are now coming online. Head over to the main battery distributor. This device takes the high-voltage reactor feed and distributes it to each of the 8 battery rooms on F deck. Go ahead and connect all 8 output breakers. Perfect. The battery arrays should now be charging, but we should perform a visual inspection to make sure. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to port battery room 1. The electrical supply on Magellan-class starships is divided into 4 isolated quadrants: forward, aft, port, and starboard. For increased redundancy, each quadrant is powered by 2 physically isolated battery rooms just like this one. Should the battery arrays in one room cease to function for any reason, the arrays in the second room will continue providing power to that particular quadrant. Similarly, power to one quadrant can be lost entirely, without impacting the supply to the remaining 3 quadrants. Okay, let's take a look at one of the individual battery arrays. On the left-hand side of the user interface, you have controls for managing the input and output breakers. And in the center, you have controls and information relating to this array's 10 solid-state battery cells. If we did everything correctly, all of the cells should now be slowly charging up. For the next step, we now need to connect each of the 8 battery rooms to the ship's electrical grid. This task will take us into the ship's labyrinth of maintenance tunnels, so be sure to watch your head. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to port battery aggregator 1. Each battery room has a corresponding battery aggregator, just like this one. These devices perform load balancing and also combine each room's 6 individual battery arrays into a single high-voltage feed. Go ahead and connect the output breaker now, which will connect this set of battery arrays to the ship's electrical grid. Okay, 1 down and 7 more to go. Next, head over to port battery As before, connect this aggregator's output breaker. That takes care of the port battery rooms. Let's make our way to the forward quadrant next. Go ahead and connect the output breaker. And the same again on forward battery aggregator 2. Okay, onwards to the starboard quadrant. Same again, connect the output breaker and the second starboard aggregator. Almost done, just the aft quadrant to go. Connect up the first aft aggregator, and finally the second aft aggregator. Okay, perfect. All 48 of the ship's battery arrays are now connected to the electrical grid. All we have to do now is supply power to the ship's remaining decks, and then perform a few cleanup tasks. We can do most of that from the reactor room, so let's head there now. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to the forward deck distributor. Each deck in a given quadrant is fed by a deck distributor, which takes the total electrical load of that quadrant, and then load balances it between the 2 connected battery aggregators. Go ahead and connect the output breakers for all 7 decks in this quadrant. Okay, Now head over to the starboard deck distributor and do the same. And now the aft deck distributor. And finally, the port deck distributor. Perfect. All quadrants on every deck now have power available from the ship's main battery arrays. You'll notice, however, that the ship is still under emergency lighting conditions, because F and G decks are still using the start capacitor's supply. To resolve this, we simply have to switch the 4-quadrant distributors on F and G decks over to the main battery feed. Head over to the G deck forward quadrant distributor. Each deck has 4 of these devices, 1 for each quadrant. They are fed by the corresponding deck distributor. Go ahead and switch this quadrant over to the main battery feed. That's better. Now we can really see what we're doing. Now head over to the starboard quadrant distributor and do the same. And now the aft quadrant distributor. And finally, the port quadrant distributor. That's G deck taken care of. Let's do the same for F deck. Head upstairs to the F deck forward quadrant distributor. As before, switch this device over to the main battery feed, and now the same on the starboard quadrant distributor, and again on the aft quadrant distributor. And finally, the port quadrant distributor. Well done. That's the main objectives of the cold start procedure complete, but we have one final bonus task to perform. Follow the waypoints on your HUD up to the bridge, and we'll make the ship flight ready. The lights and bridge systems are still turned off, so let's bring everything online. Head over to the A deck distributor in... Now go ahead and turn on the bridge lighting. And now power up. Okay, there we go. You have successfully started the fusion reactor, routed power to all of the ship's decks, and brought the bridge online into a flight-ready state. This concludes the Magellan-class Cold Start training module. Good luck, and I hope you'll join me again in future training modules.